Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what part of the world you're watching from. It's the West Ham Network. I'm Anton, and I'm bringing you a cheeky rant. Yes, me ranting. It's not like me, is it? But um, do you know what? I've given West Ham and the whole David Moyes situation the benefit of the doubt, so much over the last couple of seasons. You'll have been watching the channel and you've seen me, giving us time, giving West Ham time, giving David Moyes time in order for us to try and push up the league. I've always believed in the big transitions. I've always believed in that. I've always believed teams need that time to transition. And if you don't spend money like West Ham necessarily, or sorry, bring in volume of players in transfer windows like we did in the summer there, we haven't done that so much over the last couple of seasons, then you expect a transitional position to take place. But if you don't see anything to give you that comfort in knowing that we are going to see light at the end of the tunnel, then it starts to worry you. And I am a half glass full West Ham fan, not a half glass empty West Ham fan. But today's video is probably going to come across like I am a half glass empty West Ham fan, because when you are transitioning, you also need to see a little bit of change coming from the people who are guiding you from the top. And if you don't see that, or you don't see the love, you don't see the arm wrapped around you, or you're expecting something that's maybe not going to come, then I don't know what else to do. It becomes indefensible for me, to be honest. I'm sitting here saying to you, back Moyes, give him a little bit more time, give West Ham a bit more time. But we've got 12 games to go, and we're in the bottom three as we are in the international break. We come into the next game against Southampton, who are in a little bit of form. And the pressure will be more on West Ham than it will be on Southampton. Of course, it's a 6-pointer. And of course, West Ham need to win the game. But what Southampton equally need to win the game. And because they're below us and have been sitting on bottom, and they've picked up a bit of momentum, they'll be looking at this game and going, shit, man, we fancy this. Like, we can get there and do that. And, the draw against Tottenham, what a result for them, and beating Chelsea, and Ward-Prowse banging in a couple of goals and getting the confidence. And that's what the fan base will be building their opinion on. And puts the pressure straight back onto West Ham again. Like, it really does. Like, I feel the pressure already, and we've got a couple of weeks before that game takes place. And April's ridiculous for West Ham. April is ridiculous. But I don't know how much more I can defend the situation that's going on at West Ham. Now, we've got 12 games to go. And the situation is that we're in the bottom three. So we've got a lot of catching up we need to do. Now, I've always said that we could be 2 or 3 games away, a bounce of 2 or 3 games of victories, etc. And we could really push ourselves out of trouble. And that's what we really need to do. But I don't know how many more times I say that week in and week out, when we play Leeds and then we don't get a result, or we play Newcastle and we don't get a result, or we get a draw. And right now we're just drip feeding even less than other teams around us. Like, we're drip feeding odd points. Like, it's as if we take a point and we're happy with that. Then we go a couple of games and we lose, and then we win a game 4 games later, and it just keeps us within touching distance. But we've got no momentum. We've had no momentum this year and this season, and maybe that falls on the man who's in charge, and David Moyes. And I always think back to times as a West Ham fan over the last couple of seasons that when we could have pushed on, like absolutely pushed on. I always think about back to the last season at Upton Park, the last one at the Bowl Inn. We were flying in the Premier League. We had Dimitri Payet. We had players all over the park. Everyone was pulling together. We did concede a lot of goals that year, but we were outscoring that amount of goals we were doing, and we were getting victory after victory, and we were within one game of the Champions League. And that was our year that we should have really pushed on. But we didn't push on. We spent wrong. That was the biggest issue. And I don't necessarily believe that this transfer window is the same as that, but I believe we spent wrong. I think we went for volume over quantity, like quantity over quality, which is what we should have looked at that season. We should have pushed on that year. That was the year that we were promised big world-class signings, and we ended up with the Nordvites and the Gokantors of the world. And that was the season. That was the window we should have pushed on, but we didn't do it. And then after that, we had several windows where we kind of just tittered around in the transfer market, etc., etc. And we started to kind of fluctuate up and down the league, drop a little bit, and not really progress up necessarily the league until obviously David Moyes comes back pre-COVID. We find a little post-COVID. We have a little bit of form during the COVID thing. We've carried that on and we've pushed our way up the league. And then we have opportunities in several windows to bring players in. You pick up a couple of injuries in the team, in particular in the forward department, when you've got a player like Antonio who is struggling for form and has picked up an injury during that spell. And we come into the January transfer window and you think to yourself, all you bloody need is a striker. Like, what you do think back to yourself, like, what is going through the manager's mind to not bring in someone to try and challenge the boat? I understand not bringing in someone for the sake of it. I get that to a certain extent. But when you are a striker and you've got a reputable background of doing it, like then maybe that's all we need, is that finesse touch. That, I'm not saying I want a Diego Costa. I'm not saying I want a Diego Costa our side, but the difference is when Wolves had nobody, they went into the market and brought somebody in, just somebody that can try and challenge the grain a bit. And do you know what? His first game against West Ham, he actually was all right. Like he was close a couple of times. Obviously, he looks like he's lost his legs, etc. But the situation we find ourselves in is that we've got now, this man, Gianluca Scamacca, our mitts, and what are we doing with him? The thing that pisses me off more about the David Moyes and the Scamacca situation is, David Moyes has done this when he signs new players. He says they've got time to bed in. They need their time to bed in. And that's all we had all season when it came to Scamacca, and all we had all season with most of our new signings. But that's a ridiculous statement to make, because most clubs around the world and in the Premier League don't need that bedding in period. They bring the player in and they put them in to go and get that experience. And 50% of it works out, 50% of it doesn't work out. But what's happened now hasn't worked out for West Ham. So why did we not commit to just playing Scamacca from day one against Manchester City? The guy was fit, the guy was healthy, and the guy was ready, but we didn't play him. And already, albeit, okay, it's Man City, and albeit it's Haaland, but he's played the game and got a brace. That's him kick-started for the season. And then you look at Alexander Isak from Newcastle. They sign him. He's in the squad the next game. And look, he's already off the mark. And he's got that momentum building and scoring goals. But what happens with Scamacca? We don't we don't play him from the start. We edge him into the team here, there, and everywhere. Then he picks up a virus. Then he comes back into the team. Then he gets an injury. So he's already backs against the wall. But initially, his original back against the wall was from the start of the season when we didn't bloody play the player. We've gone through this several times before, the bedding in period, and I believed in the bedding in period. I totally understood. I thought why we would do it. We've done it with Jared Bowen, and look how that worked out for us. It worked out really well for us, obviously. But I wonder if there was a player like him that could have played a lot earlier than what he did, rather than the 10, 15-minute cameos that he was getting for West Ham at that time. Why does Moyes see it that every player we bring in needs bedded in? Why? I don't get it. It's like the Nayef Aguerd situation. We brought him in as the kind of talisman signing, sorry, not talisman, the defensive, wall signing in the summer. He gets injured in pre-season and he's not available for selection. But as soon as he's fit and he goes to the World Cup, there's no bedding in there. But he was trying to bed him in. He did, to be fair, he did try and say, I'm going to bed him in. I'm going to give him a bit of game time here and everywhere. But most other clubs around the Premier League just throw the players in and give them that experience. And I just always think to myself, I wonder, could we have managed this Scamacca situation a lot better? Should we have just played him from the start? Because how do you transition this team without playing the players you've got, the new players you've got? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. Forming understand to play with each other. They never will begin to know how to play with each other because we have such inconsistent in team selection. We don't know our best 11. And I can give that the benefit of the doubt, maybe even for the first half of the season, but not come the second half of the season, not when we've got 12 games to go, not when we're flying really reasonably high in Europe and not in the Premier League, underperforming in the Premier League. I've gone on all season about minor, minimal, what's the word I'm looking for? Minor discrepancies and why we've not um, got results this year. You know, at the start of the season, I think of Chelsea, and I think when Cornet should have scored the goal, it should have stood. And then I think of the Nottingham Forest game where we were all over them, and Liverpool when we were all over them at Anfield and we didn't get the result, we missed the penalty. You know, finer margins has been a thing that I've gone on about this season, but there's only so much we can take. There's only so much us fans can take and West Ham can take in general, and we find ourselves in deep concern. 12 games to go against a relegation team who have found a little bit of form coming up out of in April with what I don't know how many games to play in April. Things need to change, and they should have changed weeks and weeks and weeks ago, but they need to change now. It's nice that Skamaka played in the Europa Conference League. He bagged himself a goal. He was brought off nice and early. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the situation is play the bloody players, find a style quickly, and go for it, hell for leather, that season with it. It's easy to turn around and say players need time to bed in, players need time to bed in, but you can't bed them in if they don't play. That's the part I don't get. So now's the time to change. The rallying cry is go out, West Ham, go out, players. Moyes, show us what you're capable of doing. Prove people wrong. I have never wanted a manager at West Ham to prove so many fans wrong than you, David Moyes, to show us what you're capable of doing, to show us that you don't just know one way or it's the highway, to show us that you still believe that you could do this job, to show us fans that you know that West Ham cannot just progress from just surviving the Premier League this season, but push on next season, go ahead and win a tournament. Like, go ahead and win Europe. Absolutely. How good would you feel if you knew we were safe with fucking 6 games to go? And then we go and win Europe. That would make it even more sweeter. Absolutely even more sweeter. Listen, we need to change our fortunes around. And I think there is something in this team. I really do believe it. But I'm starting to worry that the man at the top, the man who's brought these players in, the man that's coaching them week in and week out, doesn't know how to utilize this squad to the level he should. And I'm starting to concern. I'm starting to get concerns when you hear loads of other people, reputable reporters, reputable football people, people in the background looking at the situation going, why are you doing that? Why is Skamaka not playing? Why is, now we've got Devin Mubama coming through the ranks. What does that mean? Does that catapult Skamaka out? Are we managing Antonio's mindset? How are we doing that? Are we allowing him to go and speak on podcasts and be creating rumors to the level he does? Why did we let Dawson go and not replace him? Was that a shit decision? Yes. Why was it let to happen? I don't know. I listened to some of the stuff that David Moyes said in the past, and he said that this was back in. Let me tell you when this was. This was in the window back in 2021, I believe, and he was asked whether the club were ready to act in the window when in that window, in the January transfer window, and Moyes said, "I'd love to say yes. Do we want to act? Yes, we do. Are we ready to act? Probably not. Why are we not ready to act? Don't say to me that there's no one out there that suits our criteria. I believed it at the time, but I don't believe it now because there's such a vast amount of footballers out there, players that can come in and just, you're telling me there's not a single player that suits your criteria that can come in and really push us on when we're struggling for strikers, when we were struggling for strikers, not now, but when we were. Why did you not do it? Why did you not buy the players back then? When we're struggling for defenders, why did you not bring the players in back then? You've done it with Dawson. Why not do it again? Who am I to make the comments? I'm not a professional manager. I'm not a professional coach. I'll back West Ham to the guns come home. I want us to stay up. Absolutely. I want Moyes to prove every West Ham fan wrong and even potentially me wrong right now. But something needs to change, and needs to change from Southampton moving forward. We need to see the grit, the determination, but we need to see a change. We can't go in again for the fourth season going on with the same players starting week in and week out. We need to see a flamboyancy. We need to see motivation. We need to see us getting at the teams. We can't see the same old West Ham that we've been seeing over the last year or year and a half in the Premier League. It's fine that we're doing well in Europe, but we can't get relegated. It'd be catastrophic if we got relegated. It'd be catastrophic, and we can't afford that. Anyway, there's my rant for the day. Take it easy, everyone. Join me for the Hammers headlines later on. And of course, come on, you Irons.